How's it going, everybody? It's me, Mr. Drake, and I'm back once again. In today's video, we're talking about getting your first mortgage approval and buying your first home. Now, the home buying process is one of those necessary evils most of us have to go through at one point in our life, like paying taxes or tidying up. My hope with this video is that I can add a few points to your checklist to help smooth out the journey. What is the part of the home buying journey you enjoy most, or what's the part you're most looking forward to when you start your home buying journey? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm going to pin the best answer. Before you seriously consider buying a property, there's a few things you need to know. The first one is how much cash do you have available right now? Houses need a deposit, and I don't recommend buying a house with anything less than a 20% deposit. That means you're going to need a good amount of cash behind you. On top of that, the home buying process has a host of fees attached to it that are going to run you into the thousands. I don't recommend selling assets in order to raise money because you could end up selling when the asset value is down. The exception to this would be in the lifetime ISA with a stocks and shares account. I've gone over those in a previous video. I really recommend a lifetime ISA to anybody who's saving to buy their first home. To find out why, go check out that video once we're done here. The second thing you're going to need to know is your monthly expenses. How much are you spending per month and what is it going towards? It could be things like rent, debt, food shopping, online purchases and subscription services, as a few examples. Thirdly, you're going to want to know if you're expecting any changes to your income or your expenses. Examples of this could be retirement, having children, divorce or marriage. Fourth, you're going to want to know how much you have set aside in event of an unforeseen change in your income or expenses. That could be things like job loss or injury or sickness. And finally, you'll need to know your cash flow. This is your income minus your expenses, and it will tell you how much surplus cash you'll have available each month. When working out your cash flow, you don't need to add your rent or renter's insurance, as they are two expenses that will end when you become a homeowner. A home buyer, heads up. If you don't have between 15 and 20% deposit on a home, you can continue to the next steps, but you may find it more difficult to be approved for a mortgage. It will also make your mortgage more expensive because you're paying interest on a larger loan. You'll also run the risk of your equity in the home going underwater. Going underwater means that you've paid off less than a depreciation in value. So let's say, for example, you've paid off £15,000 of the value of your home, but the estimated value drops by £25,000. You are now £10,000 underwater. This is dangerous because it could leave you unable to remortgage your home in the future or take any cash out against your home if you ran into financial difficulties. But let's hope that doesn't happen. Touch wood. You'll need the information you've gathered for you and your partner when you meet the mortgage advisors. Around the time of meeting mortgage advisors, you also want to be considering who you're going to use as a solicitor later in the process. They will help you with dotting the I's and crossing the T's. A good solicitor will make the process much smoother, so get recommendations from people you trust. Mortgage advisors and estate agents will have their own recommendations, but that's asking someone you don't know to recommend someone that you don't know. They may not have your best interests in mind because they could be gaining a commission for the referral. It's still worth asking your estate agent though, because you can compare their suggested solicitor against other recommended solicitors. The most important thing is do not buy a cheap solicitor. Buy a highly recommended one. You can also go to Money Advice Service for more help on finding a good solicitor. And for now, thankfully, I'm going to stop saying the word solicitor for a little while. Many mortgage advisors suggest you look for properties to buy before visiting them. This is because the house shopping window could take weeks to months, and in that time, the terms of your agreement in principle could change. It's the chicken and egg conundrum though. Do you go house hunting not knowing your price range? Or do you find out your price range, but run the risk of not having the same terms available when you go to put in an offer? My suggestion is you get a rough idea of your price range by quickly using an online mortgage calculator, and then look for your homes in your chosen area or areas with that price range. Meeting a mortgage advisor for the first time, their goal is to find out your budget so they can get the most beneficial mortgage offers for you. Meeting a mortgage advisor, you're going to need these things. Feel free to meet multiple mortgage advisors, but beware of the effect it could have on your credit history. Ask your mortgage advisor whether they will do a hard or a soft credit check. A soft credit check will come up as an inquiry in your credit history, but it won't affect your score. A hard credit check will leave a mark on your credit file. It will shave a few points off your score, and too many hard checks could make you seem like a riskier borrower just because you've approached multiple lenders. Once you receive your agreement in principle, you can start making offers. Now, you may have already been house shopping before receiving your agreement in principle, but now you're armed with the knowledge of the value of your deposit plus the value of your agreement in principle, so you have a very real price range that you can start looking at. But don't limit your search to the limit of your price range, not before you've made offers and negotiated. You could look at properties valued higher than your price range because you're able to negotiate the price with the seller, so you could get big price cuts that bring it back into your price range. The fact that your price range has an upper end limit doesn't mean you should aim to spend it all though. If you had a mortgage allowance of £200,000 and you applied for a mortgage of £160,000, you'd have a much better chance of that mortgage being accepted than if you applied for a mortgage at £199,000. There are hundreds of reasons why a mortgage could be declined, and the list is so long it could be a video in itself. So find the most common reasons online and assess yourself against them. It's important that we do as much as we can through this process to maximise our chance of getting final mortgage approval. So feel free to look at properties valued over your price range, but only make offers and negotiate prices under the limit set by your deposit plus your agreement in principle. When considering a house for purchase, there are a few questions you need to ask to understand what you're getting. Some good questions that I've seen suggested to ask are: how long has the home been on the market? Generally speaking, longer means potential discounts. How old is the boiler? Boilers aren't cheap, and an old boiler will need replacing. When was the house last rewired? Old homes may not be wired to modern requirements, so ask about the certification. Why are the sellers moving? It gives you an idea of their time frame for selling, gives you negotiating leverage, and it could bring up any issues with the home or the area. Is the property at risk of flooding? Most countries in the property will be okay, but it's worth asking because you don't want to get this wrong. I want to mention getthedata.com, a website where you just type the postcode of your potential properties and see everything from crime data to local activities and public transport. I don't get anything for recommending the site, but it proved very useful in my research for this video. The hardest thing about house shopping is not getting emotionally invested into the property. The odds of you getting the home you've got your eye on the first time round are not great, and this can become an emotional roller coaster over time. It's easier said than done though, especially when you visit the homes and you start to picture yourself and your life within them. Getting attached also makes negotiating significantly harder, especially if you're seen beaming ear to ear looking around this wonderful home and you can't find a single fault with it. The estate agent will latch onto that and he's in seller's mode. Whereas, if you practice your poker face, you show a faint interest and maybe you find a few faults with the property, you hold all of the cards in negotiating. The asking price is £250,000. Okay, I mean, that's the high end of my budget, but I like that house, so yeah, I'll put an offer in for £250,000. Excellent! I'll put that offer into the owners. Excellent, thank you very much. Yes, hello, your offer has been accepted. Superb! That's great news. Thank you very much. The asking price is £250,000. Okay, I mean, that's the high end of my budget, but I'd be happy to make an offer of £225,000. Excellent. I'll put that offer into the owners. Excellent, that'd be great, thank you. The lowest they can go is £240,000. Still a bit higher than I wanted to go, but yeah, I'm happy to make an offer of £240,000. Excellent, I will let them know. Thank you, have a nice day. Perfect, thank you very much. It's easier to start low if you're less desperate to buy, because you'll place less pressure on yourself to complete and you'll be okay about possibly missing out on a property. Unless a property is marketed with no upper chain, generally speaking, the longer it's on the market, the more concessions you're going to get on price, because the owners are probably trying to sell that one house in order to move to a second property. If you thought buying your first home seemed like a big task, just wait to the point where you're trying to sell your first home in order to move into your second. We're going to jump now to the point where you've had an offer accepted, because at this point, a couple of things happen at once. By this point, you should have a solicitor in mind, because they're going to oversee the rest of the process that moves the property from its current ownership into your ownership. It's also worth checking with them at this stage what documentation you're going to need going forward. It is worth noting at this point, if you're planning on using a lifetime ISA towards the deposit of your first home, you need to make sure it is liquid before requesting it be used. You cannot transfer a stock portfolio to the seller. Only the available balance in your stock and shares and cash lifetime ISA allowance will be sent. Your solicitor will send a request for your lifetime ISA to be released as part of your deposit, and it will be added into an account with your solicitor alongside the mortgage and any deposit that you add towards the purchase of the home. Your solicitor will charge a flat rate or an hourly rate or a percentage rate for his services through the home buying process. This will be payable in a lump sum at the end. Also at this point, the mortgage lender will need a survey done of the property, and it depends what survey they do as to what you do. A basic mortgage valuation is just a check to make sure you're not paying excessively over the value of the property. A mortgage is just a loan held against the value of the property, so if you fail to pay, they will take the home. They want to make sure that the home is good enough to act as collateral. They may also require a home buyer survey and valuation, which is a more in-depth assessment looking for any faults in the property that may require major repairs. It is advised strongly that you have at least a HSV carried out to make sure there are no serious faults with the property. They cost around £300 to £500, and to find a chartered surveyor, just visit www.rix.com. If there are faults found during the survey, or the mortgage lender undervalues the property and offers you a smaller mortgage, you can then take this back to the negotiating table with the seller to try and negotiate a lower selling price. This is the stage that causes the most tensions and stress because your mortgage could be rejected. The seller could withdraw or reject your final negotiations. A higher offer could be accepted from another buyer and you're gazumped. Sometimes the human touch goes a long way, so be in contact with the sellers via the estate agent, as this could be a useful lifeline during any problems. When you're happy to proceed with the final asking price, the paperwork comes out, forms get filled in, and documents get scanned. Once again, make sure you check with your solicitor ahead of time what documentation you need so you have it to hand. As far as I know, the paperwork is fairly straightforward, but your solicitor will be available to answer any questions you have. Once the forms are complete, all that's left to do is the contract exchange and the accumulation of your lifetime ISA, your deposit, and your mortgage into one account. Once the money's together, it will be transferred to the seller's solicitor, and your solicitor will give you a completion date. This is the date where you pick up the keys and the deeds to your brand new home. When the contracts are exchanged, you are committed to the sale and there is no backing out. So before you sign, make sure you're happy with the price and the property as it is. Backing out before the negotiations will incur sunk costs, but signing into a price and a home that you're unhappy with could cost you thousands of pounds more in the long term and cause you years of stress. Following the completion date, you'll need to do your stamp duty return and pay any stamp duty that you're liable for. This is typically handled by the solicitor, but you can do it yourself if you wish. The home is now yours and you need to think about moving in. You might need a van or a lorry to help you with transferring your stuff. Typically, transferring your stuff during the week is cheaper than doing it on the weekend. But I suggest taking the day off of work if you're going to do it during the week, because it is an all-day job, there's no doubt about that. And that, my friends, is the home buying process. A large chunk of my research was done on the Money Advice Service website and a few other resources that I found online. You must build on what we've covered today with your own research into the home buying process. Do not just rely on what you heard one ginger fella on the internet say. I haven't bought a home myself, so if I've missed anything, let me know. And if there's any tips and tricks that you use when you were buying a home that you could share with other people to help them get their sales across the line, please let us know down in the comments. In future videos, I'll be looking at the most common reasons why mortgages get declined and how you can avoid them. But don't go anywhere just yet. At the end of the video, I'm going through a full breakdown of the potential costs involved in the home buying process. Though you may not incur all of the costs, it's worth knowing them so that you can budget for them to avoid being stretched too thin. I'm also working on a Google Sheets document that you can use as a tracker for your cash needs, and also a checklist that you can use to follow through your own personal home buying journey. Thank you so much to everybody that's still here. I really do love and appreciate your support. So until next time, you know how it goes. Stay cash flow strong and turn your wages into wealth. I'll see you in the next video. Happy hunting, guys. Bye.